Winter always carries a weight, a cold, quiet pause that signals the end of things. But that year, as frost crept over the fields of upstate New York and the bare trees clawed at a pale sky, something stirred inside my stepson Caleb and me. A need for something we'd almost forgotten. I can still see the glint in his eyes, sharp and alive as he spoke. "Ma, you remember how we used to hike the woods every winter?" His voice was nervous but hopeful, cutting through the fog of my thoughts. The memories flooded back, bundled in layers, trudging through the Adirondack trails with thermoses of hot cocoa, the crisp air binding us. It was our sanctuary, our ritual. But after my husband Caleb's father died 2 years ago, the thought of returning to those woods felt like a blade I couldn't face. Caleb's words yanked me from that darkness like a door creaking open I hadn't dared touch. Maybe we could go back this year. It doesn't have to be the same. He paused, wary of asking too much. I studied his face, caught between boyhood and manhood at 20 years old, and saw something new. A quiet strength, a purpose. "All right," I said softly. "Let's go." The next weekend we set out early. A thin layer of snow dusted the ground, the air sharp with pine. Caleb carried a bag of snacks and a blanket. I hauled our old thermos. The trees welcomed us like ghosts of old friends. Snow crunched underfoot, a stream gurgled faintly in the distance, and sunlight filtered through the branches. It felt like slipping into a favorite coat, warm and familiar. As we walked, Caleb talked about college plans, dreams of a future in engineering, his voice steady, stirring pride and a pang of grief in me. My little boy was gone, replaced by this man broad-shouldered and sure. We found a clearing, spread the blanket, and I poured cocoa into 2 mugs, steam curling into the icy air. Caleb leaned against a tree, his face calm, almost serene. "This is perfect," he said, his voice thick with joy. We sat in silence for a while, the wind whispering through the pines. Then he looked at me, eyes steady. "You know Dad would have loved this, us here." My throat tightened. I nodded. "He would," I said. We shared a small smile, and for the first time in years, memories of my husband brought comfort, not pain woven into the forest around us. Weeks passed, and that trip became the first of many. Each hike peeled away layers of sorrow, revealing warmth beneath. Our talks grew deeper, diving into dreams, fears, and unspoken burdens. One day, as we trudged back to the car, Caleb stopped me. "I'm glad we're doing this again," he said cautiously. "Feels like we're connected again." I turned to face him, my chest tight with emotion. "Caleb, I'm always here," I said, resting a hand on his arm. "I'm so proud of the man you're becoming." He gave a shy smile, and for a moment, he was the boy who'd race ahead on these trails, his laughter echoing through the trees. The holidays loomed heavy with my husband's absence, but Caleb was determined to make them bright. He swore Christmas would be special, though I couldn't tell if he was reassuring me or himself. On Christmas morning, I woke to the scent of cinnamon and coffee. Caleb had cooked breakfast: pancakes, eggs, toast, a spread his father would have grinned at. He stood by the stove, tall frame, hunched slightly, flipping a pancake. "Merry Christmas, Ma," he said with a warm, boyish grin. "Merry Christmas, Caleb," I replied, leaning against the counter, grateful and amused. "Quite the feast." He shrugged, mock humble, just trying to stay on Santa's nice list. After breakfast, we exchanged gifts. Mine were simple books, a new scarf. But Caleb's gift stopped me cold. He handed me a beautifully wrapped package, his eyes nervous but eager. "Open it," he urged. Inside were 2 thick fleece blankets, deep green like the pines, soft as velvet. Thought they'd make our trips cozier, he said, watching my reaction. My fingers traced the fabric, struck by his thoughtfulness, his care. Caleb, these are wonderful, I said, smiling. He grinned, pleased. If you're dragging me out in the cold, I figured we should at least stay warm. I raised an eyebrow, teasing. Dragging you? This was your idea. He laughed, a bright, infectious sound that filled the room. Those blankets became part of our ritual. Draped over our shoulders, we'd sit in our favorite clearing, sipping cocoa, talking about everything. Caleb's teasing grew bolder, his words laced with affection. You're getting that rugged, outdoorsy vibe, Ma, he'd say, with a grin, nudging me. My heart would flutter, caught off guard by his warmth. One day, under the blankets, he elbowed me lightly. You're practically a wilderness queen now, he teased. I rolled my eyes, smirking. What, you want me to wear more makeup out here, nah? He said, his grin turning mischievous. You look good for someone roughing it in the woods. My cheeks flushed and I laughed, but his words lingered heavy with something unspoken. His compliments came more often. That jacket really brings out your eyes, or you're like the snow queen today. At first I chalked it up to his new sense of humor, but the sincerity in his voice made me wonder. Was he seeing me differently? It was thrilling and unsettling, pulling me toward him in ways I didn't dare name. One frigid evening, as we walked back to the car, Caleb draped his blanket over my shoulders, his hands lingering. You need this more than me, he said casually, but his touch was tender. I smiled, struck by his quiet compassion. What about you? Aren't you freezing? He shrugged. I'll manage. You're the one I'm worried about. There it was again, that steady devotion making me feel like the center of his world. My heart raced, torn between gratitude and a forbidden spark I couldn't ignore. The holidays passed, but their warmth lingered in our growing bond. The day before my birthday, Caleb brought it up out of nowhere. I've got plans for your birthday, he said, leaning against the kitchen counter, eyes glinting with mischief. Somewhere special. Special, I asked, curious. He grinned, drawing out the word. You'll see. Just get ready and trust me. His secrecy made me laugh, but it sparked something too, a thrill of anticipation. On my birthday morning, Caleb was up early, bustling with purpose. He loaded a portable grill, a cooler, and bags of food into the car. You're really going all out, I said, smiling. It's your birthday, he replied, brushing snow off his jacket. You deserve the best. Upstairs I changed, and when I came down his eyes lingered. You look perfect, he said, his smile soft, almost shy. The drive took us an hour through snow-dusted roads to a new forest in the Catskills, denser and quieter, with towering evergreens and a small frozen lake. Wow, I breathed as we stepped out. The air was crisp, the only sound the rustle of branches. Told you it was special, Caleb said, grinning. He set up the grill, cleared a picnic table, and laid out steaks, vegetables, fresh bread, and a bottle of wine. It was perfect, like a winter postcard. As the grill sizzled, we wrapped ourselves in blankets, watching the sun dip, casting golden light over the snow. Caleb poured wine, raising his glass. To the most incredible woman I know, he said, his voice warm and raw. My cheeks burned the wine, or his words I couldn't tell. You're too kind, Caleb, I said. He held my gaze, unyielding. You should feel special every day, especially today. We spent the day talking, laughing, eating his carefully prepared meal. It was one of the best birthdays I'd ever had, not for the food or the setting, but for Caleb's care, his devotion, the way he made me feel seen. As dusk fell, the forest glowed with blues and purples, the air sharp. We packed up reluctantly, but when Caleb turned the key, the car wouldn't start. No, he muttered, trying again. The engine sputtered, then died. "I think the battery's dead," he said, defeated. "No signal out here." The cold was brutal, and with no way to call for help, we knew we'd be stuck overnight. "All right," I said, forcing a smile. "We're prepared at least." Caleb chuckled, but his shoulders were tense. "Guess my brilliant plan wasn't so brilliant." "It's fine," I said. "There are worse places to be stuck." We grabbed blankets, leftovers, and wine, setting up camp near the still warm grill. The forest was eerily silent, lit only by Caleb's small fire. Huddled under the blankets, the urgency faded, replaced by something intimate. The cold pressed us closer, his arm around my shoulders. "This isn't the birthday I planned," he said softly. "It's perfect," I replied, meaning it. In the fire's glow under a starlit sky with Caleb's warmth beside me, I felt a dangerous peace. "You're incredible," he said suddenly, his voice low, serious. I stared, caught off guard. "You are," he insisted, meeting my eyes. "Through everything, you're still you, strong, kind, beautiful." My breath caught his words, sinking deep. "Thank you, Caleb," I whispered. Under the blanket, his hand found mine, his touch gentle, electric. "I mean it," he said. "You're everything." The air between us thickened, charged with something unspoken. Asterisk, asterisk. In that frozen forest, I realized Caleb wasn't just my stepson anymore. He was my confidant, my strength, and God help me, the man who set my soul, HTML soul, on fire. Asterisk, asterisk. The fire dwindled and we leaned into each other, the moment carrying us through the cold night. It wasn't the birthday I expected, but it was one I'd never forget. I fell asleep, lulled by the blankets and fading embers, the forest silent save for the rustle of trees and a faint owl's hoot. In the haze of sleep, I felt a warm touch on my cheek, then Caleb's soft voice. "Ma, wake up." His tone was gentle, almost tender. "It's morning." I stirred, reluctant to leave the warmth of our cocoon. His fingers brushed my shoulder. "Come on, sleepyhead. Time to move." The dawn light filtered through the trees, painting his face with a soft glow. The memory of his lips on my cheek lingered, forbidden and thrilling. "You could have let me sleep," I teased, voice rough. He smiled, pointing to the frost-covered trees. "Miss this view?" "No way." He'd rekindled the fire and brewed coffee, its rich scent filling the air. "Here," he said, handing me a steaming mug. "Stay warm. I'm heading to the road to flag someone down." I started to protest, but he raised a hand, his face firm. "Stay by the fire. I'll be back before you know it." His confidence, so like his father's, steadied me. "Be careful," I whispered, as he pulled his jacket tight and grabbed a flashlight. Alone, the forest's silence pressed in, but I trusted him. He was no longer the boy I'd raised. He was a man I could lean on. True to his word, Caleb returned in just over an hour, cheeks red, eyes bright. "Found help," he said, breath clouding in the cold. "A guy with a truck's coming." We packed up and soon the truck arrived, jump-starting our car. "Thank you," I told the driver, relief flooding me. The drive home was quiet, the sun climbing higher. Caleb glanced at me, concern in his eyes. "You okay?" "More than okay," I said, feeling cared for, whole, alive. At home, the house's warmth enveloped us. I collapsed on the couch, exhausted. "Stay there," Caleb said, his voice soft but firm. "I'll unload." As I drifted off, I felt him drape a blanket over me, his touch lingering. "You're incredible," he murmured, almost to himself. I sank into sleep, content, my heart full. No matter what we faced, I knew we'd face it together. Caleb wasn't just my stepson, he was my partner, my fire, my sin. Our bond had grown into something deeper, something dangerous, built on trust, respect, and a love that burned beyond roles. As I dreamed of the forest, the firelight, and his arms around me, I knew I'd carry this forbidden warmth forever.